The autumn wind whipped through the canyons of Manhattan, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a distant vendor and the sharper tang of exhaust from idling taxis. It was late October, the kind of evening where the sky bruised purple before surrendering to night, and the temperature had dipped just enough to remind New Yorkers that winter was lurking. The avenue was alive with the usual symphony. Heels clicking on sidewalks, laughter spilling from wine bars, the low hum of conversations in half a dozen languages. But for Sarah Klein, hurrying toward the subway with her collar turned up against the chill, it was just another anonymous blur in her meticulously scheduled life. At 38, Sarah was the epitome of poised ambition. As vice president of client relations at Apex Strategies, a boutique consulting firm that catered to Fortune 500 companies, her days were a whirlwind of boardroom presentations, cross-continental Zoom calls, and networking lunches that doubled as power plays. Her wardrobe was a study in understated elegance. Today, a tailored wool coat over a silk blouse and pencil skirt, her auburn hair pulled into a flawless chignon. She wore no wedding band anymore, not since the divorce 2 years prior, but the faint tan line lingered like a ghost. Her apartment in Chelsea was a sanctuary of mid-century modern furniture and abstract art, curated by an interior designer she'd met at a gala. It was the life she'd clawed her way into after years of night classes and entry-level drudgery, a testament to her belief that success was 90% grit and 10% luck. Tonight, though, her mind wasn't on quarterly reports or the pitch for the pharmaceutical giant she was prepping. It was on Lily, her 7-year-old daughter, waiting at home with a nanny. Sarah had promised a movie night, something light, like that animated film about talking animals that Lily adored. It was their ritual, squeezed into the crevices of Sarah's calendar. Tuesdays and Thursdays, plus every other weekend. The divorce had been mutual, or so they'd framed it in the settlement papers. David had wanted more time for his passions, photography, hiking, whatever nomadic dreams filled his freelance graphic design gigs. Sarah had wanted stability, a future where Lily wouldn't wonder if the lights stayed on. They'd parted with handshakes and a shared lawyer, agreeing to joint custody that felt equitable on paper, but strained in practice. As she descended the subway stairs, her phone vibrated. A text from a nanny. "Lily's asking for you." "Traffic bad?" Sarah typed back quickly. "Almost there. Pick up ice cream on the way." She smiled faintly, picturing Lily's gap-toothed grin. The train rattled in, doors hissing open, and she squeezed into the car, wedged between a man scrolling TikTok and a woman buried in a novel. The ride was the usual assault. Ads for luxury condos flickering overhead, a busker strumming a guitar for loose change, the collective sigh when delays were announced. Sarah leaned against a pole, closing her eyes for a moment of stolen peace. 20 minutes later, she emerged at her stop, the cool air a welcome slap after the underground fug. The walk to her building was short, 3 blocks of brownstones and boutiques, the kind of neighborhood where dog walkers outnumber panhandlers. But tonight, as she turned the corner onto Elm Street, something snagged her attention. A figure slumped against the wrought iron fence of a shuttered gallery, partially obscured by the shadow of a leafless maple. It was a man, mid-30s perhaps, bundled in layers that looked scavenged, a threadbare parka over a hoodie, jeans frayed at the cuffs, boots caked in grime. His face was hidden under a beanie pulled low, but one hand clutched a battered guitar case, the other cradling a paper cup half filled with what might have been coffee or something stronger. Sarah's step faltered. She wasn't naive. She'd seen her share of the city's underbelly. On her commute, she'd mastered the art of averted eyes, the polite sidestep around outstretched hands. Charity was for her monthly Venmo to the food bank, not impromptu encounters that disrupted her rhythm. But this man, something about the way his shoulders hunched, the subtle tilt of his head, as if listening to a melody only he could hear, tugged at a frayed thread in her memory. She quickened her pace, keys jingling in her gloved hand. "Not my problem," she told herself. "Lily's waiting." But as she passed, the man lifted his head slightly, murmuring, "Spare a note? For a song, maybe?" His voice was rough, edged with exhaustion, but there was a lilt to it, familiar, like an old radio tune she'd half forgotten. Sarah stopped. She didn't mean to. Her body betrayed her brain, pivoting on the sidewalk. The man looked up fully now, and the streetlight caught his features. Sharp jaw shadowed with stubble, hazel eyes dulled by fatigue, a scar above his left eyebrow from a biking accident in college. David. Her David. Lily's father. The world narrowed to a pinprick. Sarah's breath caught, a sharp inhale that bordered on a gasp. David. The word escaped before she could cage it. He blinked, confusion flickering across his face. Then recognition dawned like a slow sunrise. Sarah. His voice cracked on her name, the guitar case slipping from his lap to clatter against the pavement. He scrambled to retrieve it, but his movements were clumsy, hampered by the cold or whatever else had worn him down. What were you doing here? Sarah's mind raced, piecing together impossibilities. David lived in Brooklyn, didn't he? In that quirky loft with the exposed brick and the skylight, where he'd host barbecues for his artist friends and Lily would finger paint on drop cloths. He'd been spotty with child support lately, late payments excused by emails about slow gigs, but he'd seemed fine. Functional. Not this. Not a shadow of himself. Reeking faintly of damp cardboard and despair, sitting on a grimy sidewalk in the gathering dusk. David pushed himself up, leaning heavily on the fence for support. He was thinner than she remembered, his frame swallowed by the oversized parka. I was heading to the shelter on 14th. Got turned away, full up. Figured I'd try my luck here. People round these parts tip better. He attempted a wry smile, but it twisted into something pained. You look good. Promotion go through. Sarah's hands clenched around her purse strap. The avenue pulsed around them. Couples linking arms as they exited a bistro, a jogger pounding past with AirPods in. But she felt exposed, as if spotlights had pinned them in place. David, this isn't. Why didn't you say anything? The custody handoff last weekend, you picked up Lily from the park like everything was normal. You were humming that stupid Beatles song she loves. He shrugged, avoiding her eyes, kicking lightly at a crumpled leaf. Didn't want to worry you. Or her. It's temporary, Sarah. Just a rough patch. Lost the lease on the loft. Landlord jacked the rent. And my commissions dried up after that ad agency folded. Been crashing with buddies, but things cascade, you know? One bad month turns into 3. Temporary. The word echoed hollowly. Sarah thought of the texts he'd sent. Lily had a blast at the zoo. Thanks for the extra hours. Photos of them at Coney Island. Ice cream smeared on chins. David's arms slung casually around Lily's shoulders. Lies, or at least omissions vast enough to qualify. How long, David? How long has this been temporary? He hesitated, glancing at the guitar case as if it held the answer. 6 weeks. Maybe 7. Started with the eviction notice. Then the van got towed. Couldn't pay the impound. Sold my gear to cover basics. But gigs are scarce in this economy. Freelance life's a gamble. And I lost the hand. 6 weeks. While Sarah had been finalizing her corner office lease. Toasting with champagne at happy hours. Dropping Lily off at his place with a kiss and a wave. The handoffs had always been at neutral spots lately. A coffee shop, the library, because David claimed his building had pest issues. She'd bought it, too busy to probe. Now, the pieces slotted into a grotesque mosaic. Her ex-husband, Lily's father, homeless in the city that devoured the vulnerable. A horn blared nearby, jolting her. Come on, she said, the words tumbling out before logic could intervene. You can't stay out here. It's freezing. Lily's with the nanny. Let's get you cleaned up, fed. We can talk. David shook his head, backing a step. Nah, I'm good. Don't need pity, Sarah. Just a couple bucks for the night. His pride flared, brittle as autumn leaves, but she saw the tremor in his hands, the way he hugged the guitar case like a shield. This isn't pity. It's family. Lily asks about you every day. What am I supposed to tell her? That her dad's a ghost on the street? The mention of Lily pierced him. His shoulders sagged, defeat etching deeper lines around his mouth. Fina, but just tonight. I don't want to mess up your world. Sarah hailed a cab with a sharp wave, the yellow light cutting through the gloom like a lifeline. The ride to Chelsea was tense, silence broken only by the driver's radio murmuring traffic updates. David stared out the window, fingers drumming a silent rhythm on his knee. Sarah paid with a tap of her card, ushering him into the lobby where the doorman nodded politely, oblivious to the fracture in her facade. Her apartment was on the 5th floor, a keycard elevator whisking them up in hushed efficiency. As the doors opened, the space unfolded. Open-plan living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, a kitchen island of polished quartz, bookshelves lined with first editions, and framed photos of Lily at various ages. David paused in the entryway, dripping faint water from his boots onto the sisal rug. "Nice digs," he said softly, not quite a compliment. "You earned this." Sarah shrugged off her coat, hanging it precisely. "Showers down the hall. Towels in the cabinet. I'll heat up leftovers. There's lasagna from last night." She busied herself in the kitchen, pulling foil-wrapped dishes from the fridge, her mind a storm of questions. How'd she miss this? The signs were there. His increasingly erratic schedule, the way he'd dodge questions about his projects, the faint hollows under his eyes at pickups. But she'd been so focused on her ascent, on being the reliable parent, that she'd tuned out the static. The shower ran for 20 minutes, long enough for her to plate food and pour wine. Red, a bold Cabernet she'd splurge on for client dinners. When David emerged, he looked marginally human, hair damp and tousled, wearing an oversized sweatshirt and joggers she'd dug from a guest drawer, leftovers from his pre-divorce visits. The scar on his eyebrow stood out starkly, a reminder of simpler times. Lazy Sundays biking through Prospect Park, laughing until they toppled into the grass. He sat at the island, inhaling the lasagna like a man surfacing from submersion. God, this hits. Haven't had real food in. Well, street carts get old fast. Sarah sipped her wine, perched on a stool opposite. Talk to me, David. All of it. No filters. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, gaze drifting to a photo on the wall. Lily at 5, blowing bubbles in a sun-dappled yard, both of them flanking her with forced smiles post-separation. It started small. That agency I told you about? They ghosted mid-project, owed me $5,000. Use it to float the rent, but then the market tanked. No one's commissioning art when layoffs loom. I pawned my camera first, then the amp bounced between couches. Jake's place in Bushwick, then Maria's in Queens. But Jake's wife got pregnant, space crunch. Maria's dealing with her own shit, divorce, custody battle. Didn't want to drag her down. Sarah nodded, the wine loosening the knot in her chest. And the handoffs? With Lily. David's fork paused midway to his mouth. The library, the park, there were safe spots. I'd take her to museums, Central Park Zoo. She'd chatter about school, draw me pictures. I'd drop her back, feeling like a dad for those hours. But yeah, I lied. Told you the loft was under Reno. Couldn't bear you knowing. You'd take her away. File papers, say I'm unstable. And you'd be right. The accusation hung, unspoken but heavy. Sarah set her glass down, the clink echoing. I wouldn't. You would. His eyes met hers, unflinching. Not to hurt me, but for her. Stability, right? That's your mantra. And look at us. Me, a drifter with a guitar and regrets. You, the powerhouse with the view. What judge sides with the hobo? She flinched, the truth a slap. In her more cynical moments, she'd imagined worst-case scenarios. David flaking on pickups, spiraling into vice. It had fueled her resolve to be the anchor. But this was a slow unraveling, thread by thread, until the fabric gave way. How bad is it? Money? Health. Money's gone. Health. Sleeping rough as a number. Cough that won't quit. Feet blistered from pounding pavement. Shelters are roulette. Beds if you're lucky. Fights if not. Last week, some guy knifed over a blanket. I play for change sometimes. Old folk tunes, covers of Dylan. Enough for a bodega sandwich. Sarah's throat tightened. She thought of Lily, asleep in her room down the hall, unicorn pajamas and a nightlight shaped like a star. What stories would she tell in therapy someday? Daddy disappeared into the city, like a character in one of her books. No, not on her watch. You stay here tonight, she said firmly. Guest room's yours. Tomorrow, we sort it. Resume, connections, I know people in design. And child support, we'll adjust. David pushed his plate away, appetite sated but unease lingering. Sarah, this is your space. Lily wakes up, sees me like this. She's 7. She'll be thrilled. Daddy's on a sleepover adventure. She forced a smile, but it wavered. Besides, she's 7. She'll be thrilled. Daddy's on a sleepover adventure. She forced a smile, but it wavered. Besides, it's one night. Then we plan. He relented with a nod, exhaustion claiming him. Sarah showed him the room. Crisp linens, a window overlooking twinkling lights, then retreated to check on Lily. The girl was curled under her comforter, thumb half in mouth, a stuffed elephant clutched tight. Sarah brushed a curl from her forehead, whispering, "Sweet dreams, bug." But sleep evaded her own bed. She tossed in silk sheets, replaying the evening like a glitchy film reel. Morning broke with the insistent chirp of her alarm. 5:45 a.m. Time for yoga and emails before the school run. She padded to the kitchen, starting the Keurig, when Lily's voice piped from the hall. "Mommy? Is Daddy here?" Sarah froze, coffee pot in hand. David appeared behind her, rumpled but cleaner, scooping Lily into a bear hug. "Hey, Munchkin, surprise visit." Lily squealed, legs kicking. "You stayed over?" "Like a fort." "Something like that." David winked at Sarah over her head, a conspiratorial glint that echoed their early days. Breakfast was pancakes, Sarah's go-to from a mix, drowned in syrup, and chatter about school art projects. Lily dominated, waving her fork like a scepter, oblivious to the undercurrents. David laughed in all the right places, but Sarah caught the strain. The way his eyes darted to the clock, the subtle hunch as if bracing for eviction. After drop-off, Sarah's SUV pulling up to the elementary school's curb. Kisses blown through the window. They drove in silence to a nearby cafe. Over lattes, the real talk began. "I need a job," David admitted, stirring sugar absently. "Not freelance, steady. But my portfolio's outdated. No address for applications." "It's a loop." Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling contacts. "Elena at Vanguard Media. She heads creative." "I can vouch." "And housing. There's transitional programs through the firm. Subsidized apartments for folks in recovery." "Recovery?" He arched a brow. "From what?" "Bad luck. From whatever. No stigma. It's practical." She hesitated, then, "And therapy. For both of us. Co-parenting 101. We've been phoning it in." David's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Fair. I owe you that." "Owe her." The week blurred into action. Sarah looped in her assistant for resume tweaks. David polished his LinkedIn, digging out old samples from a USB drive he'd stashed in his guitar case. Interviews followed. A junior designer role at a mid-tier ad firm, entry-level but salaried, with health benefits. He nailed it, charm undimmed by hardship, starting the following Monday. Housing was trickier. Shelters were Band-Aids, David's credit, scarred by missed payments, barred rentals. Sarah fronted for a sublet in Astoria. Modest one-bed with subway access, framing it as a loan. "Pay it back when you can." No truce. But the nights stretched. David crashed on her couch those first weeks. Lily delighted by the impromptu campouts. They'd roast marshmallows in the electric fireplace. David strumming lullabies on his guitar, retrieved from pawn with Sarah's card. Sarah watched from the sidelines, a mix of resentment and relief churning. Resentment for the disruption. Late both. David leaned back, nursing a beer. "We were kids when we met. 22, crashing raves, dreaming big. You push for more." I coasted on vibes. Divorce felt like failure enough. Admitting rock bottom? That I'd become the punchline, the artist who starves. Sarah traced the balcony's railing, cool metal under her fingers. "I pushed because I was scared. Grew up in that trailer park in Jersey, mom waitressing doubles. Swore I'd break the cycle. But I stopped seeing you. Saw obstacles." He chuckled bitterly. "Obstacles with talent. Remember that mural in the old apartment? The one of the skyline at dusk? Clients love my stuff. But yeah, I dodged the grind. Thought inspiration trumped deadlines." Silence fell, companionable yet charged. Then, "Lily drew this for you." Sarah handed over a folded paper. A crayon cityscape, stick figure family holding hands under a rainbow. David's eyes misted. He tucked it into his wallet like treasure. As weeks turned to months, the scaffolding held. David's paychecks deposited steadily. He repaid chunks of his sublet, bought groceries for Lily's visits. Co-parenting therapy unpacked the debris. Sarah's control issues rooted in scarcity, David's avoidance born of a chaotic childhood. Absent dad. Mom lost to addiction. They laughed sometimes at old photos or Lily's antics, the ice thawing. But cracks spiderwebbed. A missed pickup, David's subway delay turning into overtime, and Sarah's texts escalated from "Where are you?" to "This is unacceptable." The breaking point came in December, snow dusting the avenues like confectioner's sugar. Lily's school holiday concert, a cacophony of recorders and off-key carols. Sarah arrived early, front row, program in hand. David slipped in late, coat dusted white, sliding beside her with apologies. Lily spotted them from stage, waving furiously during jingle bells. After, in the lobby throng of proud parents, Lily tugged David's sleeve. "Daddy, can we get hot chocolate?" "All three of us." Sarah tensed. Her evening was cocktails with a client, but David's grin disarmed. "Lead the way, Chief." The cafe was festive, garlands looping from rafters, steam rising from mugs. Lily chattered about reindeer, syrup mustache forming. Then, quietly, "I like when you're both here. Like a team." The words landed soft as snowfall. Sarah met David's gaze over the table, a bridge forming in the space between. "We are, Bug. Working on it." That night, post-bedtime, David lingered. "She's right. We owe her more than tag team." Sarah nodded, vulnerability loosening her tongue. "I almost walked past you that night. Saw the guitar, the cup. My brain screamed a void. If not for that voice. Glad you heard it." He stood, shrugging on his coat. "Thanks for the lifeline, Sarah. Not just the roof, the chance." As he left, elevator dinging shut, Sarah felt the apartment's emptiness acutely. Not loneliness, but potential, a canvas half-sketched. Spring unfurled tentative. Cherry blossoms lining the park paths. David's sublet blooming with potted herbs on the fire escape. He landed a side gig, album art for an indie band, his confidence flickering back. Sarah delegated more at work, carving space for family walks, where Lily darted ahead, collecting treasures, acorns, bottle caps. One Saturday in May, they picnicked in Bryant Park, blanket spread, cheese board unpacked, David's guitar propped nearby. Lily napped against Sarah's shoulder, sun filtering through leaves. David strummed softly, an original melody weaving through the breeze. "What's it about?" Sarah murmured. "Redemption. Bridges burned and rebuilt." He paused, chords fading. "Us maybe. Not the old us, the possible one." She smiled, genuine, the scar of winter fading. "Play it for Lily when she wakes." Our song. Summer brought solidity, joint vacations planned, a week in the Catskills, cabin rented, no screens. They hiked trails slick with dew, Lily's laughter echoing off pines. Evenings by the fire, stories swapped. Not accusations, but truths. David's tales of street nights, the kindness of strangers sharing benches, the terror of sirens in the dark. Sarah's confessions, the guilt of late nights, the fear that success came at Lily's expense. By fall's return, a year post-sidewalk, the avenue held no shadows for David. His one bed had become two, Lily's artwork papering walls. Child support flowed both ways now. Sarah covering ballet, David art classes. Therapy evolved to family sessions, unpacking the divorce's fallout like buried relics. One crisp October eve, mirroring their collision, they strolled Elm Street, Lily skipping between, hands linked in a chain. The gallery fence stood sentinel, leaves swirling at their feet. "Remember when Daddy was magic here?" Lily asked, twirling. David knelt, eye level. "Magic's real, kiddo. Just need a nudge." Sarah watched, heartful. The city thrummed, indifferent, but their orbit had realigned. Not perfect, but orbiting closer. "Kids," David said later over wine, "see the strings before we cut them. They don't rationalize away the hurt. They dive in."